From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment right here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your host, the Vegabomber, PJ Dunn.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, film fans. This is season 3 of the Fulfillment Show, episode 3. I'm not doing this alone today. I've got some cast of characters, some usual suspects with me here today. And so to my right sits John E Flix himself. Say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
And also that big booming voice you heard up top was K-Zach.
Greetings and salutations, campers. Welcome to DallasOnAir.com.
Yeah, so you're probably going, wait a minute. You guys, I thought y'all were the second and the fourth Sunday. How is it that you're on the third Sunday? Well, we had something called inclement weather here in Texas.
You mean the snowpocalypse?
That's exactly what it is. And, you know, as in Texans, we just can't drive on ice or snow or anything like that at all. If it doesn't look gray or some earth tone, we just don't have to drive on it. So we just stayed in. Johnny, did you stay in? Did you go out? What did you do?
Yeah, there was a lot of staying in for a while.
On top of the sheltering in place. You can imagine how crazy, right?
Yeah. Just thankful I was able to stay warm for most of it.
Oh my gosh. And if you've been watching the news, you know that here in Texas that there were a lot of people that had no power, they had no water, pipes burst. There's a lot of things. And so it was tough. K-Zach, how did you manage?
I literally stayed in the house from Saturday to Saturday.
Nice.
I did not go out except to take out the trash. That was it. You ain't get. I grew up in this stuff,
Okay.
and you ain't getting me out in it again. Not to mention with crazy Texans who cannot drive in it.
That's it.
You will not put me behind the wheel. I made that mistake when I first moved. You're like, I can drive it. I can handle this. No, you can't. Not because you don't know how to drive it, because no one else does.
That's right. You have to watch out for this one here.
Precisely.
Lesson of the week, make sure that you have plenty of movie snacks in stock
Bingo.
at all times.
I think that's not a bad idea at all.
I exhausted my popcorn supply. I tell you.
Juju beans, Buttercup, Snickers, the whole thing.
Bingo.
So what we were going to do last Sunday, since last Sunday was also Valentine's Day, so it was time for you to get with your loved ones, your sweetie, or maybe sit back and drink some haterade about it, right, with your Galentines or your Palentines or however you want to rename it. But we thought what we would do from a film perspective is look at some of the best on-screen performances in terms of having romance. So we know that there's romantic movies. We're not saying necessarily they had to just be a romantic movie, but just scenes that conveyed great acting, that the lines weren't corny, and that you believed it and you actually kind of wanted to see this couple either get together or stay together if someone else was trying to break it down. So this week, our topic really is about on-screen relationships. But before we go there first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we've seen this week. And I'm going to kick that off. So just seen is what we're looking at first. And with that, I'll kick it off with, there's my wiki. Yeah. The Little Things on HBO Max. So this is a film directed by John Lee Hancock. Yep, John Lee Hancock. You might have heard the joke already about that in some famous documents. But this was a film by him that starred three Oscar award-winning folks, right? Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Rami Malek, and the most recent Rami Malek. And so you would think with a movie like this, what could go wrong? Right? But as it turns out, this movie, I would have to say it doesn't cut the mustard. So here's what it is. This is supposed to be a crime, philosophical drama type deal. And it's supposed to be about how this old cop helps out a new cop with somebody who we think maybe is or isn't the antagonist or the villain in this deal. And so, okay, the players that are involved, not bad. The problem is this movie's actually too long as well, even though it's only 2 hours and 8 minutes and change or something like that. It needed to only be about an hour and 40 minutes.
Really?
Yes, because while you love watching Denzel Washington chew up some good scenery and Jared Leto does a great crazy weirdo, you know, and of course Rami Malek, I like the way that he can act, but I think he didn't sell to me that he was a detective. Right. I just didn't see that, right? He has a very intense face, and he's a very small-statured guy. So he didn't seem like this brash detective who was just coming on the scene and needed the help of the old Ben Kenobi, if you will, and Denzel Washington. So I guess casting, I don't know. But then the story suffered because the story didn't really go anywhere super unique. It just plotted right through a bunch of things that you already have seen in millions of crime drama type deals. I would say the better version of this would be True Detective. If you've ever watched any season of True Detective, that was done way better, and I think this was kind of a very sophomore copy of that. But they thought they could get away with it because they had Denzel and Jared and whatnot. So I would say that there were some plot twists that they put in here, and you kind of just went, all right, I guess we could go there. There's some there are some themes and some scenes in this where Jared Leto does some things that you go, okay, that makes sense, but pull that back a little bit. Like he's overacting in some places. Like you can almost tell he's trying really hard to be weird. And then Rami Malek does some things where you're going, a cop wouldn't do that. A cop wouldn't just jump into this scene, do this thing that you just did here. And then, so there was some stuff that just didn't make logical sense. And I struggled with the little things. And then of course the debate is, who really was the killer is the whole thing that they're trying to do. And so if you
they don't even clear it up?
No.
They leave it. Come on.
They leave it to where you could take it several different angles, which in itself wouldn't be bad, except for the fact that it wouldn't make sense for Denzel's character, Deke, to do a certain thing because it's something that happened in the first act. And then it wouldn't make sense for Rami Malek's character to do what he did because then that wouldn't make sense. So there was just some continuity errors that you would go, no. And then there's people online right now actually trying to dialogue about, well, actually, Denzel's the killer. Well, actually, so-and-so's the killer. Well, actually, and the truth is, I don't know that the killer was even in this. Right? Because there's several clues you could follow up that, So,
well, Ted Cruz is a Zodiac killer. He basically was in Cancun the whole time. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Right?
That's what happened.
Yeah. It totally does. So I'm just saying to you out there, did you watch this film? Did you like Little Things? Was it great to you? Because for me, I saw it and I watched it, but felt left wanting. Like I was like, for this caliber of actor, please tell me you wrote something better for them than just this. And not just say, here, just shoot up the scenery for 15 minutes. Denzel, go. Just show the old tired guy. Is that what they say? Is that it? Yeah. Y'all got a lot to learn. They still have to catch them, don't they? Criminals, that is, right? And you're like, we needed what felt like a 15-minute just to watch Denzel chew up some scenery, or Rami Malek, or we got to really believe that Jared Leto's the bad guy here. So he has to really turn on the extra uber creepy factor, which some people said he should have did when he played Joker in Suicide Squad. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So I'll just say real quickly, Little Things, I saw it. I don't think you'd be that impressed with it. But if you like to talk about things and debate philosophical things, I guess you could. But, Johnny, I can't say I was there with this one.
So it's Lethal Weapon via the Seventh Seal. What a drag.
Yes, or Taken 3. Watching Liam Neeson's old ass trying to run and chase somebody. Oh, my God.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. But if you have my social security check, you're going down.
Johnny, what did you watch the last time we talked?
Oh, boy. Okay. I dug into Treadstone. Television show that I hadn't heard of until just last week, and got on Hulu and watched it. Treadstone, for those that might not be aware, definitely a spin-off from the Jason Bourne series of movies. I actually read the novels prior to the movie. And gotta say, the movies and the novels, they don't follow the same path at all. So totally different storyline. Where I have to say I was really disappointed in the Treadstone is with the Jason Bourne stories, he had amnesia, right? That was a big feature in the plot, was that he didn't remember who he actually was, and he's trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Well, I guess for the show Treadstone, they decided to double down on that, and since they can't have everybody have amnesia, they decided to make everybody trained so that they forget who they are. So everybody in the program doesn't know who they are. Oh, no. Like, come on. I'm sorry. That's a little ridiculous.
That sounds like a really difficult acting choice.
It's literally everybody in this program. They've got all these people that start popping up, and none of them know who they actually are, and just all of a sudden they have to start killing people.
So all of them make the Keanu Reeves acting choice.
Yeah,
I know kung fu.
And the actors themselves, I thought they did, for the most part, a pretty decent job, and the story is entertaining enough, but no originality there if that's the driving force behind it all.
Yeah.
So
Treadstone. So you're saying we should take a skip on that one?
yeah, I'd skip it. Yeah.
Okay, Zach, what about you, man? What have you seen lately?
All right. So like I said, we were in Valentine's weekend, and over Valentine's weekend, I saw Shudder's entry, which was the Joe Bob Put a Spell on You Valentine's special. Now, for those of you not familiar with Joe Bob's Last Drive-In, Joe Bob's Last Drive-In is basically Joe Bob, sanctioned film critic from the Dallas Morning News, from Texas Monthly, from just years and years and years doing it, just basically celebrating B movies. So what he does is he celebrates. This time we took a Valentine's Day take on it, and we got two really bizarre love stories. The first, of course, which I've talked on the show before, is Tammy and the T-Rex.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, now basically, it was a film written in 6 days, where the producer said, "I have an animatronic dinosaur for 3 weeks. Write me a movie. I have $1 million, and I have Paul Walker and Denise Richards. Go."
Wow.
And I mean, this is like Paul Walker and Denise Richards' first films, and it's
Oh, no.
terrible.
Oh, no.
The effects are god awful. The acting, and basically what happened was there's a history to this movie, and the fact that the studio saw the gore cut of this film because there's heads being ripped off and stomachs being ripped out, all terrible. And they said, we can't release this like it is. So they did a PG-13 cut and released it as a kid's movie. And it's god-awful even there. So they finally found this Italian cut of this movie with all the gore added, and it's just like, we released it on Vinegar Syndrome, and it's just fantastically terrible. It literally is an animatronic dinosaur ripping heads off of people, where basically Paul Walker is killed unceremoniously and has his brain put into an animatronic dinosaur. And that's the plot. Denise Richards falling in love with the animatronic dinosaur. I'm not kidding. That's an hour-and-a-half movie.
Oh my.
Only out of 1991 from the guy who made Mac and Me. Okay.
Oh man.
And that was the first one. The second film that we got was this really kind of stylized film called The Love Witch from 2016. It was kind of a film festival darling, directed by Anna Biller.
The Love Witch?
Yeah. It's not a great film, but the way they made it is stellar, because what they did was it was made in 2016, but it's stylized to look like all the late 60s, early 70s kind of psychedelic films, like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So, you know, they have heavy makeup, there's no special effects other than some easy camera effects, but it's just really like bold colors and, bright, bold acting. Like I said, the film is not great, but the visuals on it are absolutely stunning. It's because again, you've got old 60s and 70s tropes. You've got historic fashion and things like that, and it's shot on 35 millimeter, which no one shoots on 35 millimeter anymore.
Wow.
So you've got some great perspectives and tight close-ups and things like that. It's filmmaking that you don't get anymore, but it's stylized and it's amazing to watch. So even though, like I said, the film is kind of trashy in of itself, the performances are less than great, because again, you have no-name actors just basically putting forth this director's vision. But the cool thing about it is that with this particular special, Joe Bob doing an interview with the director and talking about her intentions and just how much she put into this film, how much research, she's like literally doing the paintings and crocheting the rugs and things like that. Everything to get this film made exactly how she wanted it. And it just looks gorgeous.
Wow.
But like I said, the film itself is not great. If you're not into 60s and 70s, weird psychedelic stuff, it's not for you. Okay. But if you dig kind of cool filmmaking, kind of that throwback stuff, it's great.
That's right, all two of you. If that's what you...
Yeah.
No.
It is not for you, but it may be for you. So,
Love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to now dive into something that is the main focus of the show. There's actually two pieces today. We're going to talk about the greatest, the best, the romantic scenes that when we saw them, maybe you still remember them to this day. So, I guess, going against popular belief that men can't like to see good relationships in films, we're going to break that today because we're going to tell you the ones that we thought were pretty influential. And then for even more fun, there's that wiki. For even more fun, we'll also talk about the ones that absolutely sucked that you talked about and made fun of back then. And we're going to talk about it today and make fun of those films today too. But let's start off first with these Valentine's Day films, or really ones that have great scenes. And here's the idea. Here's what we're looking at. And I want to kick it to Johnny first and hear what his are. We're going to just take one and go around the room doing it popcorn style. With the many decades of great films, some of them have had great romantic chemistry type pieces in it. And so to me, what we're defining now maybe I'm defining is, did the actors make sense? Did it make sense for them to fall in love in this scene? Because you don't have to have a romantic interest in every one. So does it make sense? Secondly, did the actors' talents, the way they were cast, actually show up to where it was perfect, where you just said, man, I couldn't have seen any other two people playing these two roles because they both seem to have that chemistry. And then the last piece is that, was it significant to the story or not, which kind of sounds like the first one in terms of, did it need to be in here or was it not? So sometimes these are these are shoehorned in, if I could just speak correctly. It's a new tongue. I kept the receipt, so I can always get rid of it, right? So, Johnny, let's talk about you. What hits your list is something that you saw that was very encouraging watching a romantic situation go on screen?
My top pick is Satine and Christian from Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge, okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's a big one for me.
Okay. I want to hear it.
Number one, I think the two of them, Ewan McGregor and there we go again.
Yeah.
Right on the tip of my tongue.
Nicole
I can't think
Kidman.
of her name. Nicole Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Their chemistry on screen was just phenomenal, start to finish. You've got great tension there, but the reason I picked this one for my number one is that their romance is very expressive.
Okay.
It's big and it's bold and everybody sees it, and that's unique in my list for that reason. So,
and it's that old school movie feel too.
Oh, absolutely.
That big movie musical romance.
Yes, big bold sets, and it's larger than life, and that's his whole notion of love in the first place. The way he falls in love, he can't contain it, and the movie itself can't contain it, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's devastating too, right? There's the loss at the end that you can't help but feel.
Okay.
So that's a huge one for me.
Wow. Okay, Zach, how about you?
Well, for me, it's kind of that film that you always have, that one film where you grow up, getting the idea of what real romance is. And for me, it's always going to be Wesley and Buttercup from The Princess Bride. I know it's a trope, I know it's a classic, and you can go time and time again. But Robin Wright and Carrie Elwes on this film, they're wonderful together. I mean, you can actually sense the chemistry. You can actually sense the playoff. You can see them going from one extreme to the other. Just every level that they play the relationship on is just fun. And again, like I said, you see the desperation in Robin Wright Penn. You see the will in Carrie Elwes. You see these actors really give this really just gorgeous portrayal of two people who were meant to be together and always fighting for that. That's that that solid filmmaking, that couple that you don't necessarily see, that you get that big romance movie feel off of them, that you get that that prince princess type thing. It's that really perfect kind of just storytelling with a couple that you're rooting for them the whole time. I mean, you have absolutely reasons to hate her for moving on, and then you get absolutely reasons to love them for being together. It's just one of those great performances that it's unmatched. And like I said, it's that film that, since it was the film that I grew up on, it's that film that, kind of sets that ideal.
Yeah. No, oof, that's strong. I like that. That's a good one. You're coming out the box.
It's a hard one to top for sure.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And so I guess my number one that I picked here, and I love this one, it's going to be King Leonidas and Queen Gorgo in 300. And I'll tell you why. Because I love the fact that the first thing you get is you get this guy coming in telling them, the messenger telling them, hey, we're coming and we're going to take you out, or else you guys can, give up, in which they're going to still kill him or enslave him anyway, right? And so here's what I love. This is the first thing that you see. What you see is King Leonidas doesn't go, this is Sparta right off the bat. That's not the first thing he does. The first thing he does is he looks back at the land. Then he looks at his family. He looks at the kids. Then he looks at his wife, right? And all she does is, I love it, she doesn't have to say anything. She gives him the look like, kick his ass. Go ahead and defend this country. Defend Sparta. Just do it. She doesn't sit there and go, oh my God, maybe we should. She doesn't act frantic or scared at all. She had this know of, I don't even have to say it. I just can give you a look and you know what to do. And that's when Leonidas turns around and goes, this is Sparta! And then he knocks that dude over and everybody gets all excited and your testosterone goes up and you can't wait to do things and you jump up and down and all this kind of stuff, right? But see, you got to pay attention. He wasn't going to do that unless Gorgo said, yeah, I'm with you, honey. But they were so tight. And then later on in the film, he can't sleep, right? And he gets up and he's wandering because his countrymen are telling him, nah, man, we're not going to go do this. And he's like, no, but we do need to go fight. We do need to go do something about this. And so I love it. He goes to his wife. She's not dumb. She's not weak. And she asks him, what's wrong? And he says, well, what is a king to do when the very, republic that he's trying to protect is against the very thing he was trying to do to protect the republic? And I love it. And she just looks at him and it shows you her wisdom, right? Because women are not idiots, right? There's a way you work together and you love each other, right? And she just says, it's not what a king would do. It's what an honorable man would do when facing the situation. And again, there's this know of, man, she gets me. She knows me. She knows how I'm built. And then he goes out. And then he goes, and of course she stays back, and she stands up to the Senate, right? And they talk down to her because she's a woman and all this other stuff. And so to me, as I saw the relationship between Leonidas and Gorgo, I'm like, that's what I want. I want to know that in my relationship with my lady, we got each other's back like that. And that if I just can't figure something out, that I don't have to all of a sudden act like, well, I can't talk to you about this stuff. This is man stuff. I like the fact that he was open enough to tell her what was on his mind, because she could see it anyway. He couldn't sleep. So that let me know that there's a good relationship there, that they trusted each other in conversation. So to me, I just couldn't get over that when I saw that, because that's not the one thing I expected. What I expected was to see a bunch of dudes in some sandals, right, and their drawers walking around and just fighting all these Persians. I did not expect that you'd have this strong woman character with him, and together you could see their strength. So I was plussed by that as I saw it, and I'm still plussed by it now as I think about it. So Johnny, who else is on your list? Well, what do you think?
I might actually have to rewatch that one after hearing that.
Yes.
It's a good one. So my number two, a little bit cliche, admittedly, maybe for different reasons. Maverick and Charlie in Top Gun.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so polar opposite to Moulin Rouge, right?
Okay.
No expression.
Oh, yeah.
No expression at all.
Yeah.
Maverick never once compliments Charlie, never tells her he loves her, nothing like that. It's his co-pilot's wife that finally tells her, hey, he's in love with you, right?
Wow, yeah.
He just goes after her, right? They never discuss any of it. But similarly to your number one, it's when Maverick loses his cool, right? The emotion starts to creep in. She calls him out on it. He's ready to walk away and throw everything out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she calls him out on it and leaves. And that's what turns him around.
Yeah.
So it's that same type of dynamic there. And, Top Gun was not supposed to be a romantic movie, but as you were asking before, did the movie need it? A lot of people say no, but I actually would say yes, it did need it. It needed that element in it to get Maverick back in the plane, back in the air,
Ooh, that's a
and
good point.
fighting for something that he believed in again.
Wow, that's a great point. That is a great point. Because other times how this would be covered, right? Case sometimes how this would be covered is be some wise old man come in and say, "Look, son, quit being a punk and do this and that." But when you can have that female dynamic come in, it gets attention.
Yeah, yeah. Because he was driven.
Yeah.
He was driven to be the best pilot. He was driven to be the best lover, if frankly. And he lost it all.
Yeah,
For a moment.
yeah. She gave him great perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, remind me when we're off air that I need to tell you the Quentin Tarantino version of Top Gun. I will get to that on another time. But the Quentin Tarantino interpretation has a much different couple,
I'm dying.
and
to
we'll
hear
get
that one.
we'll get into that off air because that's not the show.
Gotcha.
All right.
It's your turn.
My turn. All right. So for me, again, you have those films that you kind of grow up with, and the film that I kind of grew into with my wife was When Harry Met Sally. You have Harry Burns and Sally Albright. Again, you with this film, it's not. I don't think it's coincidence that I chose two Rob Reiner films, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I
because, like I said, you get to see this couple kind of grow together. These people are already growing up. They've already kind of grown, but now they kind of grow into each other. And you get just this really, again, wonderful chemistry between Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan on screen. And you go through all their ups and downs, and you relate to their dialogue and things like that because you relate to them. It's not one of those where they just kind of jump in the sack together. It's basically a friendship that grows into a relationship, that grows into a romance, that grows into something stronger. Which and when you have Meg Ryan, who portrays that doe-eyed optimist, and you have the dark-eyed pessimist and Billy Crystal, and the two of them playing off each other and playing off their friends and things like that, talking to their friends about the relationship, you really get to see personal growth.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about the film. And you have Billy Crystal, who's so good off the cuff, and you have Meg Ryan, who's so deep in the script, and you get to see the two of them work together, and it really, really works, and it works throughout the whole film.
I agree with that because one of the things I remembered was just how well the dialogue was written well too, because it was dialogue that was well lived in.
Nora
right?
Ephron, totally.
Absolutely, at her best. So I totally agree. And then the humor that was the way they slid it in. They didn't turn it into a rom-comminess. It was just, no, actually, this makes sense that she would say this and he would say this here.
Yeah, it's just funny. And I mean, the film has not lost its impact. The film has not lost anything, in the years since it's been made. It still works. I watch it every year on New Year's because it's my tradition with my wife to see that film because it's a really fun film.
Wow. Yeah. We need to do a revisit show where we go back and revisit some classics and see how it impacts us today and how it's different than maybe it impacted us when we first saw it. So that's an idea. I like where you're going, son. I like it. So the one I saw, now this one is one that I also didn't expect to see. This is probably the better Denzel Washington movie than that Little Things, but that's another story. This is Antoine and Cheryl in the Antoine Fisher story. So this came out in 2002. This was excellent because what I appreciated about this story was, again, I expected to see a hard luck story about this guy, but he's so lived in, and his fear is so real about, well, if Cheryl knew my past, she wouldn't want to be with me. She understood that I slept on benches, and my dad, I was born in prison to a mother who then died, or a dad who died doing horrible things. I have a jacked up past. Whoever wants to go out with me, right? And so what's interesting, what sets this up well in this movie is that Denzel Washington is his naval psychiatrist because he's in the Navy and he has to go see the shrink several times because of his anger management issues. He gets into a lot of fights with people, right? And so just seeing how Denzel handles him and says, well, where's your family? And he's already grief-stricken about that. About, well, I don't really have nothing really to tell anybody about that's going to be worth anything, and really that's why I'm here, right? And Denzel says, you got a girl? And he ignores that. Like, there are things you need to be doing in your life, and you can do them now. And the way Derek Luke, playing Antoine Fisher here, does the sheepish, shyish, you buy it, like, well, what do you say on a date, right? The way he cowers, the way he carries that. And then the fact that he does like somebody on base, you know, and it's Cheryl, right? And he's scared this whole time thinking she'll never want to have nothing to do with me once I tell her what my background is. And instead you get this situation where she's like, well, let's just go out. Let's just see. And the fact that she was willing to go through, and then as they unpack what's wrong with his life and everything that's wrong with him, she doesn't run and say, well, let me go find me a better Navy officer on the field that didn't have all this drama. She didn't diss him because of his drama. It actually was used to bring him in closer. So she's there. So if you haven't seen Antoine Fisher, this is a film that will make you cry. Because this is a guy that, you know, he had one of the toughest lives growing up, and the only thing he could go to was the Navy. And even in the Navy, he hadn't resolved all of his anger and bitterness, which was making him fight a lot, sometimes his own guys. And so when you see that and the portrayal of how his mother was just never looked for him, never wondered where he was, and he never decided to go back and look for her until it was Denzel Washington saying, why don't you go find your family? Maybe that'll help you figure out why you're so mad. Right? And there's some great just moments between Denzel and him. But then when he gets with Cheryl, the fact that Cheryl doesn't freak out or flinch when he says, yeah, my family's crazy because I don't even know who they are. And she goes with him to go find his mother. And just what they did together as she's trying to unlearn who this man is. She's going through all the phone numbers in the phone books trying to call these people that have the name because he doesn't even know what his real last name was. So she helps him do this. And then at the end, how she's just part of the family, it seemed natural that it would take someone like Cheryl to be his other side. And so when you watch that, the acting is ridiculously great. And again, would romance be in here? Absolutely, because his psychiatrist, Denzel Washington, has a great relationship with his wife. So it makes sense that he would say, well, how about you? What do you got going on in that area? And then to see how sheepish he was about, I don't know. I mean, what do I do? What would I say? I mean, Derek Luke sells it. So to me, that movie, I watch it for several different reasons. I love the psychology that's being played between Denzel and him. And then I love the relationship between him and Cheryl and how they come together in his biggest, lowest moment of his life. It's phenomenal. So Antoine Fisher, everybody, I'm just letting you know. What about you, Johnny?
Last one for me is Driver and Irene from Drive.
Okay.
So Ryan Gosling's character doesn't even have a name in the film. And what I love about their relationship is you don't ever really see it happen. It's all in their eyes. They don't ever discuss it. They're very quiet together. In fact, trivia moment here, I actually read that they actually had scripted lines, but Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan refused to say them.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
That's pretty epic there. There's just this deep intensity between the two of them that it elevated the film significantly. His character is very quiet and reserved to begin with, and there's so many films, especially as we're talking about best romantic couples on film, there's so many that it's all about getting to that romance. It's almost never restrained.
Yeah.
Not by the characters themselves. There's always external forces. They just hold back, and you feel that tension throughout the entire movie, and it's intense. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, because I thought originally I had got it mixed up with the 1978 film Drive with Ryan O'Neal, but this one I haven't seen this version, so I definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, it is a wonderfully intense film, and that the coupling of those two is really, really bold, and you know he's got a past, she's got a past, and the two of them just bringing desperate circumstances together and being desperate people who fall for one another. It's really it's a real just journey for the two of them. especially for this guy who just does terrible things. You know?
Yeah.
'Cause- and he does some terrible things.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah.
But-
How about you, K-Zag?
all right. So, like I said, I'm a horror guy, and we don't necessarily get couples in horror, or the girlfriend is always an accessory, or the guy is dumb, things like that.
Yeah.
The one that I chose, because it kept coming up, because I was looking at list after list and going, okay, who would I choose? And for this one, I chose Seth and Veronica from The Fly. And oh God, the film is just almost an allegory for working with someone with an addiction or a sickness and things like that, and following them through to a tragic end. And I mean, it is the tragic end of tragic ends. But I mean, you Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum play off each other's horrible circumstances. Gina Davis is incredibly strong. Seth Goldblum just devolving into Brundlefly, and watching her go with him on the journey, seeing him through, and then watching him fall and fall and fall, and standing beside him until she can't anymore. And it just comes down to, what would you do for someone who you love so desperately? Would you do the ultimate thing for them, which is end them? Because she absolutely has to. And like I said, there's no spoilers on this film, because, like I said, we're beyond that. So if you haven't seen The Fly by now, you're really, really missing out. But it's just one of the most tragic love stories I've ever seen on film. Not even just from a horror aspect, from just a cinema aspect. Because, like I said, it is a woman falling in love with the man who becomes a monster. And can you still love the man within the monster? And that's what, kind of really breaks it down. And and when you see, the bravura performance from Jeff Goldblum, and having him stand beside Gina Davis, who absolutely is his match throughout the whole film, it's just one of those things that you don't really get, in a lot of films, and especially in a lot of horror films.
Yeah.
So with this one, like I said, it's just an exceptional pairing on screen that it's unsurpassable. Man. It's a high bar.
See, that's one I'm going to have to watch again, because it's been a good while on that. But.
Oh, and it's so worth revisiting, because, again, the energies in that film just don't get tired. It's one of those timeless films, man.
Oh, man, I think that's so good. And speaking of that, so my last one of just great screen romances, this is, I guess, my kind of obvious one, or kind of easy one, but this would be Han Solo and Princess Leia in Empire Strikes Back and in Return of the Jedi, of course, right? And so, again, what do I love here? Again, sure, by now it's been so tropishly done so much, but at that time, you're talking about in 80, when Empire comes out, you love the idea that here's this guy, Han Solo, who's not a main character. He's a tertiary character at first. He's just a guy that's supposed to get them to the ship so they could do what they need. He can get his money and he can leave. But the idea that he's toying with the idea, hey, do you think a princess would get with a scoundrel like me? And Luke cuts him off real quick. No, like, I don't think this could happen at all. Kind of sets up that. But I loved the tension crafted in Empire Strikes Back, where Han was being overly sensitive. Usually they make the female super overly sensitive, right? But it was Han that was upset that Princess didn't seem to be paying as much attention. And then he had to kind of turn it up a little bit to let her know how much he cares. And he's like, come on, you want me to stay. You want to. And the whole part about, well, I know lots of nice men. He goes, well, maybe you don't need that. Maybe you need a guy like me. And he's making this case, but he's getting closer and closer to her face as he does it. And she's kind of there, and she could resist if she wanted to. She's doing a very passive-aggressive type resist, really. And then they have that kiss, which you didn't think in Star Wars that you needed necessarily, because you got the Empire and you got the Rebels and you got to stop all this and you got pew, pew, pew. But it made sense in Empire Strikes Back. And then, of course, we get that classic line whenever he gets ready to be dumped into the carbonite. She says, I love you. And he's like, cool, I know. And then in Return of the Jedi, she pays him back that same factor when he gets captured on Endor. But she's got a pistol. She's able to turn around, and if he just moves, she can shoot all the people. And he goes, I love you. And she goes, I know. So I love how they played that back. It worked, and you didn't have to have a huge, sappy setup for this. They played well with the idea of, could the scoundrel get the princess? We hear it all the time in fairy tales. Would that happen here, and would it look the way we think it would look? And they don't just make it super sappy. It's just, it becomes in our situation, why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we go there? And besides, Han's thinking, I better, because if I don't, Luke's going to try to go after it. But then that would be just gross, right, if it was Luke.
and they play it so well, because, I mean, Carrie has to be so detached and on top of things and things like that. And Han is just fighting for it, man, because he knows he's got to take every shot he can.
Yes.
He's got every angle, and if he doesn't try it now, he's never going to get that opportunity again. So you really got to admire the gusto in Han Solo, and you have to respect Leia's wanting to be guarding on that, man. It wasn't just some princess falling in love with the scoundrel. It was, like I said, this ain't supposed to happen, but it's going to happen.
Yes.
It's a great tension, man.
Oh, it's a super tension in the idea that, and this is where they ruin it in most romantic comedies today. They make it like over the top that the girl has to hate him first, and then he tries and pushes past that, and then they get together, and then that's kind of just ridiculous. But here, you love the idea that at the same time, a guy named Solo wants to be a couple with somebody. Like, what else is going on? So that made me want to learn more about Solo. Like, okay, there's something else going on here. You're not just the guy that's just out just for the money. That this guy actually has a heart of gold too, and he actually can see himself going past his limits, right? Because Luke has to go past his limits to get where he needs to go. But we're actually now seeing, okay, a guy named Solo actually wants to go the conservative route in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kirshner absolutely gives the human impact in the whole story. That's your human connection on this sci-fi space opera, man.
Yeah, and it makes sense, and I'm glad it was those two and not Luke and Leia, because that'd be kind of crazy. So we've talked about,
because then John Williams had to put banjos in the orchestra.
That would go into the soundtrack. Yes.
Plenty of jokes there.
Well, just like that, we told you the 3 best. So go ahead, go look them up. Go look them up right now if you want on your phone to see some of these, and go watch them, and go find your honey and go sit down with him or her and say, hey, we got to sit down, because those guys at Fulfillment told us this would be a good time for both of us. We might both benefit if we watch these movies. So if we're going to do that, we also got to talk about, okay, because there's some good films out there that did this well. There's also some films that did it horribly, right? So now we're going to talk about the dishonorable mentions. This is where why did you shoehorn this in here? Really, this person and that person, those are the 2 people you put together? Or they're great actors and actresses, but even their acting can't salvage this scene or this movie. And Johnny, we're going to kick it off with you. Who have you seen do the flip side of what we've already talked about?
Funny enough, all of my dishonorable ones are TV shows, not movies. My worst is Hank Moody and Karen in Californication.
Oh, tell me about it.
Now, granted, they're not meant to be good together.
Mm-hmm.
But even within that, they have moments where they find their way back to each other, and it's still awful. Right? I mean, they're supposed to love each other, but not be good together. But you don't get that.
Mm.
She's constantly on him about everything all the time. And the moments that they do get back together, it's more because she's with somebody else that's horrible for her too, and she's running back to him, and there's just still no chemistry there.
Yeah.
And it just leaves you feeling, it leaves you feeling kind of uneasy most of the time.
Yeah.
And they were together for several seasons too, so they had the time to work out those details, and it never came together.
It just didn't work.
And
yeah.
they're good actors.
Yeah.
You know, you got David Duchovny and Natasha McElhone.
Yeah.
They're great actors, and I didn't see it between them at all.
Wow.
Not even the hatred between them even.
Oh, that's bad. When the love ain't good and the bad is bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
These movies, like Bon Jovi would say, these movies give love a bad name, right? Okay, Zach.
Well, for me, I think I kind of took a different take on, the worst couples on screen because I chose couples that were intentionally bad for each other. And they're written that way, but I mean,
Okay.
it's intentionally bad. And the first one that I go with is Mickey and Mallory from Natural Born Killers. Because you go into this seeing a love story unfold of these two toxic people who were in a toxic situation and destroying everything around them except each other. And I think back to the revulsion that I feel after watching the film because you are not supposed to like these people, but the film tricks you into absolutely loving everything that they do. And it's really kind of a statement on, watching and celebrating toxic relationships because these are two evil, nasty people who destroy everything around them except each other. And even then, they're destructive towards each other because they can't help it. They're, Woody Harrelson and Juliet Lewis, again, playing, just hurtful, hateful people. But good God, the passion in that performance is real, but the circumstances are just horrifying. And I mean, it's so worth watching because it's a love story that is doomed to explode in front of you any second. And every minute that they're together on screen, you just watch them burn the world down. And that's why, like I said, they're just such a toxic couple, but God, they're great on screen.
So this could have made it in your good?
No,
couples?
because like I said, they're a terrible couple. They're a terrible couple for each other. But to watch it on screen, the crafting of that terrible couple is amazing. And I mean, it's so toxic, but like I said, you cheer for them, but then you realize, oh God, what am I cheering for?
Oof, okay.
That's the take on it.
Wow. Okay.
I like that.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah. Oof. Well, I got something pretty disgusting and nasty, too. So, there's a movie called The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, man.
And there was this attempt to try to make a whiny dude named Kylo Ren. And Rey, who's just naturally good at everything, doesn't have to train until they decide later on retroactively to make her train. But these two, because everybody wants to see these two to get together. And sad part is there were some people out there that actually wanted to see this, and they were already, carrying, signs that say, Rilo or Raylo or however they wanted to do it. But I got to tell you, okay, first of all, this was a dumpster fire of films anyway, these three films, right? Because if I can talk about Han and Leia and how great that was done, and that was pretty simplistic. It wasn't that involved, but it was still good. To then go here, and now in this movie, you're going to take a dude who's been whining and crying, a dude who killed somebody that Rey looked up to, but now she's just going to forget that, Kylo Ren, her boy now, all of a sudden, he killed Han Solo right in front of her when Han Solo gave her, a pistol, gave her a laser gun and said, yeah, and was kind of taking her in under his wing in The Force Awakens. Oh, but I'm going to forget that you killed, Han Solo now. And now I want to kiss you by the time we get to and I was like, are you kidding me? Really? This is the juxtaposition that you want me to believe? So here again, it's like, well, it doesn't pass the test of, does it make sense for them to even be in a relationship? No, it doesn't, right?
They didn't think, I literally thought they were brother and sister up until that point.
Yeah.
That's how much chemistry they had.
Yes. And when some dude tells you you're nothing, you're trash, and your parents, they were nothing, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's so great. I want to be your girl. What?
Bingo.
How on earth do you sit back and then say, hey, young girls, Ray's a role model for y'all? See, these are the kind of guys you should be interested in. They kill their father in front of you. And then later on, they tell you you're junk and you're nothing because you're just a spawn of your parents. But hey, love them. Forgive all that stuff. I mean, there can't be any other better guys out there for you, Ray. I mean,
It's say anything if they tried to be trash.
Silver lining here, they do tell girls to marry the man that you want your son to be like. So maybe she was looking forward to having her son kill him.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. And when they went for it in the film, in the third act, I'm like, don't you do it. Don't you dare do this. Don't you dare do this movie. I wasn't going to watch you anyway because I already knew this was going to be trash. But because I have a review show, I have to talk about it. So I have to watch it on some degree. But yeah, when they did this, I was like, okay, that's got to be one of the worst things I've ever seen. But actually, then I could go to even more in here. I could talk about Finn and the other girl. I forget her name. The Asian girl. I forget her name. That was ridiculous how they tried to shoehorn that in there.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they brought in a black girl for Finn in this one after, he's crushing on Ray, but they never go anywhere with it. Then they got, the other girl crushing on him and saves his life somehow, weirdly, even though she was behind him. But somehow she got up to the side. And anyway, and then this one, it's like, but now, Ray, the perfect guy for you is Kylo. You should go get that because everybody wants him. So at any rate, to me, that just tore me up. It almost made me hate anything Star Wars that was after, 90s. But I still do. I'm still going to go back to my original trilogy because I know I can be safe there. And I can even watch the prequels, even though that's something else we can talk about. But Johnny, give me another one, man. What's another one you just kind of felt like you should just take off clothes and take a bath because it was so nasty?
Well, okay, so slightly different direction for me on this one. It's
All right.
the Quentin Coldwater and Alice Quinn from The Magicians.
Oh,
It's a fun and dark show.
okay.
It's kind of like if Narnia was on meth. But you take this guy that's full of hope and loves magic so much, and then you pair him up with a girl that hates it. And the two don't have any chemistry on the show. She shows no emotion whatsoever until she's angry.
Okay.
And it's just they keep trying to force it, and it just doesn't work. You get more emotion out of the rest of the group of friends. Even the guy that hates him originally is more torn up about things than she is.
Wow.
So it's just it's a weird mix there. They should have left that non-romantic.
Just trash.
Yeah,
Okay.
they tried to force too many romances in the show all at once. Everybody had to be coupled up.
Talk-
Weird. Yeah.
Well, it would have been a magical feat if they could have done it, but evidently it doesn't sound magical. The Magicians doesn't sound magical, y'all. So there we are. Okay, Zach, what about you?
All right. So, again, I chose another toxic couple, and it's Veronica and Jd from Heathers. This was my favorite. This is one of my favorite films in high school because it is every bad relationship you had in high school played out on screen and given a body count. Because it is the wrong guy for the right girl. It is the two of them are terrible to each other in the end. The dialogue between Christian Slater and Winona Ryder, it's phenomenal. And again, they play it so well. They craft this toxic relationship perfectly. But good God, they're just a terrible couple. I mean, they're just bad for each other, and she enables him to do his worst, and he gives her license to do her worst.
Wow.
And once she realizes what they've done, and he realizes that he knows his only out. He has his end game, which is to blow up the entire school. It's just a terribly toxic relationship. It's wonderfully played out, but good God, are they terrible for each other.
Wow.
And like I said, it's every bad relationship you had in high school because you dated all those people who were terrible for you.
Whew. Well, I got one for you as well. So I guess I'll stick with this theme of the big box office ones. And so one that I thought was extremely hideous and kind of backs exactly into what you're talking about, Johnny, is Jurassic World 2015. So to have Bryce Dallas Howard as Claire and Chris Pratt as Owen Grady here, it's just the pretty people, the popular people. And so we have to find a way in a Jurassic movie to make this have a romance. And so it's already established in the movie that they went on a bad date and she can't stand him. But I guess all you need is some dinosaurs chasing after you, trying to get you to make that kind of make the other person soften on you and then try to make it go there. And so it was kind of like, okay, this is one of those situations where you just put this in here because people think they're pretty, and then because of that you want to see them come together. And I'm like, that's not the reason why you put people together. And so here they are, they have to fall in love at the end, and it's just kind of like, I can see them falling, but not in love. I see them falling in dinosaur crap, but not anything other than that. But no, that's just too much to ask. We have to have them fall in love in here. And so I thought that when they did that, I was just like, shame on you, Chris Pratt. Shame on you, Bryce Dallas Howard, because she's a great actress, and Chris is very likable. Yeah. And so the fact that they were talked into, and then I guess they weren't able to do like what Harrison Ford did when he changed the line and said, I know. I mean, it'd been great if he'd have just said, no, girl, take it down the road. I mean, that would have been more believable than just, come on, let's go. The dinosaur wants to eat me and you. Look what we have in common. Hey, we should go out. Hey, we should. I mean, what? So pretty disgusted with that.
Yeah.
And, I think that's all I probably need to say about that. Yeah. So, Johnny, what's another one that you have?
Big Show, Breaking Bad, Walter White, and Skylar.
Okay.
Man, they were awful for each other. And you then kind of like what you were talking about with 300. It's the total opposite there. Instead of her being able to support him, encourage him, pull him out of the darkness that he had fallen into, she pushes him farther into it.
Yeah.
And it's bad. They destroy each other.
They turn into that couple.
Yeah.
And that's masterfully played by those two actors.
Yeah,
Yes.
very much so. It leaves you feeling really, really disturbed how bad things can go very quickly, especially with all the lies and deceit and everything. And it shows just how far people can fall.
Yeah, it is a wonderful case study to show that in a relationship, especially in a coupling, if one of you is sick, both of you are going to eventually get sick unless you have that strong enough presence to pull the other one out, and neither did, and that's what was highlighted. And you're right, that was more toxic than the drugs that he was making.
And to be clear,
yeah,
I thought they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
it is really, really worth watching that.
Yes.
Yeah, when he tells her, I am the danger, he's saying, I'm the danger to you.
Yes.
Just that flat out.
The revelations from just that line itself echoes into eternity, if we could use another line from another movie. Okay, Zach, throw up another one for us. What's another one?
All right, so I chose the most toxic relationship ever put on screen, and that is Tyler Durden and Marla Singer from Fight Club.
Yes.
Oh, good Lord, because
Yes.
you have the relationship where these two can't stand. Like, we're gonna go spoilers here, because if you haven't seen Fight Club, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You have a couple who can't stand each other. He saves her life, but he's not himself, and he absolutely is bent on destroying her. And I mean, it's even more prevalent in the book version than it is in the movie. But wow, are these two terrible for each other? They cut out the ultimate line in this movie that should have stayed in from the book. She literally tells him, "I want to have your abortion." That that tells you everything about just how terrible these two are for each other. Again, and it's not that necessarily that, because she's the most self-involved person ever, and he's completely out of his head, and he doesn't even know he's doing it. And when you realize that he doesn't know he's doing it at the end, and he ultimately tries to save her, you don't buy it, because you know exactly what Tyler's doing in his head, and you know what he's doing to her, and it honestly is the most toxic relationship I think ever portrayed on film, outside of maybe Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Yeah, just wow. Or maybe,
it's disgusting. You
could have. I mean, you could have gone leaving Las Vegas, and you didn't.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think this next film, though, may give it some competition, but it's probably for a different reason, and that is the Attack of the Clones, the relationship that was created between Anakin and Padme. Now, we all know George Lucas shouldn't be writing dialogue. He just can't do it. That's just not one of his strongest suits. In terms of being creative and world building, all that stuff, yeah, he's got that down. But when it comes to writing dialogue, and then especially when it comes to writing romance language to each other, this is one of the reasons why people hated the prequels, is because of how this second movie was so bad. The first one was already bad, but Darth Maul kind of saved it for some people, right? But then this came after people hated what was going on in the first one, and they hated that favorite Gungan everybody hates, right? So then you back it up with this movie, and then you have this what's supposed to be a relationship between some people who look like they're completely different ages when you first saw them, and then now, and then they just don't even address that whole thing. It's just that Andy's grown up now. And then you try to wonder what it is about Anakin that Padme sees, because he's sulking, he's petulant, he's immature, he's whining all the time about the Jedi Council just won't give me my due, and Ben's jealous of me, and it's like, oh, I want to be with you. You seem like a marvelous man to be with. And he goes and kills those Tusken Raiders because I killed them, all of them, children too. And she's like, stars, love stars. Oh wow, what beautiful language! Like what? And if it
I
wasn't
want to
worse-
be a fascist. I want to lead the nation. Well, we're just not going to get along, are we? Yes, we are.
No, go ahead.
It's literally a telenovela. It's a Spanish soap opera, the whole thing. I just want to watch the thing with Spanish dubbed over it, just so I can watch it in its original language.
And if that wasn't bad enough, they had to give you the scene on Naboo where they're frolicking out there in the grass and rolling around. And that is one of the most tropish things. And see, what's sad about this is that the love romance between these two is standard here, because we have to have this understanding of who's Luke and Leia's parents. So we have to have it. So it's pivotal that they have a romance. The sad part is, this is not the romance we were looking for at all.
Yeah.
And this romance is so bad, it did look like 90s teen movies, romantic comedies. I mean, did you get that same sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
It could have literally picked it up at like Dawson's Locker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're saying things like, when I'm around you, my mind isn't my own, Padme. What the hell are you talking about, man?
Yeah. Some warrior there.
So I don't know. I would like to think that there could be better films, and there are better films for you to watch, especially if you're going to watch something of the romantic tip. So I think, what do you think? What are your best? What are your worst? What are some films out there that made you want to get into a relationship because the film was so good? You said, hey, I think I'm open. I'm ready. And then for you commenters and those of you watching, what are some films that you just said, no, I'm good. I'll stay single. That's what it looks like. Don't watch these 2 Star Wars movies. That'll save you in the first part of it. But I think that's what we got this week. This is a short week, or a short month, and because of the weather, which was pretty villainous. Actually, not as villainous as Padme and Creighton Haydenson here with his portrayal. But beyond that, what we'll say is this: we will be here next Sunday, so tune in. In behalf of Black History Month, we're going to look at some of the best contributions from some of the black directors and writers, and even the performers. So if you're very interested in that theme and paying attention, even if you don't know much about that theme and you're thinking, maybe I don't need to watch that show because I don't know anything. No, actually you should watch, because this is where you can pick up on some other great pieces of cinematic history that maybe didn't get a chance to make it to the forefront or bring in $1.6 billion like Jurassic World, despite its greatness and its shortcomings. But if you're interested in that, there's a whole bunch that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about next week. So you will see that, and we will be here next week. So let's get into shout-outs if we can. So what about you, Johnny? Who you shouting out to?
All of the rest of the country, Texas and Oklahoma, are now the North.
There it is. Okay, Zach.
Shout outs to our counterpart on other Sundays who was grateful enough to kind of share the studio with us today. That's Cole Houston over at the Rancor Pit Live and Isle of Toys. And of course, like I said, check out all the stuff here on DallasOnAir.com, including a new show, Fan and Wife, with Eddie Medina and Colleen. And his wife Colleen. You can also check out stuff like, if you're into sports, BFB and 12 Pack. Check out Say Something. Check out all the stuff here on DallasOnAir.com. Special shout outs to Jansen and Catherine, who, like I said, are out of the studio today. But like I said, they work hard for us every week, so we appreciate them here on DallasOnAir.com.
That's right. And I want to give a big, great shout out to Brandy and Barry Austin, Sean Presley, Edward Smith, who's watching us, also known as Prim Online, Lauren Wiedauer, Tristan Fraser, Harry Thomas, Troy Ross, and of course, Eddie Medina, Daniel Meza, Mad Mel, the film samurai himself, and of course, Scott, Laney, and Sandra. They are watching us up there in the great Illini. So we thank you for that, and we will see you guys next week. How about that? Until then, we're out. Peace.